And we are live. Welcome, everybody. We are doing something a little bit different. Roe's very excited. With that English degree, he's going to really pitch in a lot here. We're going to talk about the science and science fiction. We have one more coming, but since our scheduling person didn't send him the link until like a minute ago, Ryan, not Patrick, I almost called him Patrick. Ryan will be here as soon as he checks his Twitter. But anyway, while we're waiting, Teresa, who are you? You've been on here before. Why did you come back? Do you not have better sense? Please tell me.
Oh, I have fun with you guys. Yes, no, I'm a fantasy slash science fiction author. I write a lot of young adult fantasy books. You can kind of see them up in the background here. I'm also working on a new one that's more of an adult oriented science fantasy book. And I like coming back with these guys. I always have a lot of fun. You laugh a lot, and it's a good time.
Okay, and Kia, not to be outdone, why are you back on? You were here just recently. You should have known better.
I know, it's been a few weeks. I couldn't stay away. I'm also a fantasy author. I also do sci-fi, but mostly just in short story format because I would kill myself over trying to make it accurate in a book format. And by day, I do spaceship stuff.
Nice.
When you say spaceship stuff, like real honest to goodness spaceship stuff.
Yeah, like I spent a couple years working on the Orion capsule for NASA's Artemis program. So the capsules that people go in, basically.
I'm just going to sit here and be quiet.
Okay. And Ryan, you are here. Can you hear us?
5x5.
Nice. So we're just introducing ourselves. So tell us who you are and why you came back. Do you not have a
Hi everyone, I'm Ryan Patrick. I'm a former Air Force and Space Force officer. I currently work as an aerospace engineer for Blue Origin. I went on. Mike, when did I come on? Was that was last year, right? It was like December-ish time frame.
Last year.
Yeah, and I had a blast, although my webcam wasn't working half the time. And Mike offered me the chance to come and talk science and engineering stuff, and I couldn't turn that down. So I'm here.
So, and I told people last night, if they're watching the show, that Ryan has actually read my book and had issues with some of the science in it.
I didn't really have any issues with it. I was just giving you crap, Mike.
I was so disappointed. I went to Catholic school. I'm willing to be, disappointing to people. It's kind of my jam. But anyway, so there is no, there's no real form for tonight's show. We're just going to be talking about science and science fiction. My first question, and I have one so far. I'll have to think of more as you guys answer. But is there any movie with science in it that does a better job than The Martian? So anybody can jump in at this one.
For sci-fi, probably not. There's bits of Ad Astra that I really like the science of. Same with Interstellar, but I think The Martian's top notch.
So did we all like The Martian, by the way?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine you didn't. So
they took a little bit of liberties in the movie that weren't done in the book, but it was still pretty. It was pretty close. It was pretty good.
So, yeah, when I decided to write my sci-fi, I was like, I love The Martian, I love The Expanse, and I don't want to write exactly like that technological level because I will just do a very poor imitation of one of those. So I kind of was like, somewhere in between. So that's what I chose. Why I chose what I chose.
So what kind of science fiction elements did you put into your book, Mike? I haven't read it.
I needed early on. I needed him to be launched up from the ship to catch someone who's floating away into space, and I just had magnets repel one another to shoot him up at an ungodly speed that probably would have liquefied his brain or something. But I was like, who's going to do the math? I didn't think I'd have this panel, but have people check. But
that's all right. No, I like what I like about writers, I guess, putting science fiction in their books, even if it's not like completely, totally accurate all the time, just the fact that they're exercising like their imaginations. And then, I don't know, like everything that science at some point in time didn't exist. So, I mean, every little bit, kind of helps get people in that right direction, and just getting people to think about science in ways that they haven't done it before, or just inspiring, kids or something to get interested. If whatever you wrote was really cool and it's like kind of science themed, then they're going to pick up another, science themed book, and their minds will grow.
So I can tell you that my editor, who's on mute here, when he read, he's like, I'm just going to assume that you nailed the science here because I don't know. And I was like, perfect. That's the reader I want.
Well,
Yeah.
to be fair, it also sounded pretty good. So it was pretty obvious you'd done the research with it.
I have to tell you, I took physics in college 35 years ago, and I got straight C's. So
physics has changed since then. So
didn't understand it then, don't understand it now. So especially magnetics, and I had magnets used all the time. I'm like, yeah, other than they stick, that's all I know about magnets.
But you also have to like keep in mind your target audience, right? Like if most of your readers are not going to be like people with physics degrees, it's okay if you're not like nailing everything,
right.
Yeah,
you're selling a lot more books to English majors than physics majors.
Yeah, that's what I market a lot of mine more now as like science fantasy books, because I know like being an aerospace engineer, I know that this is not all 100% real. Like having people like jump through portals to like travel through space is not, with just a cloak to protect them, is not the correct way to do space travel, So
it's macroscopic quantum mechanics, right?
exactly, right. I mean, I do try to incorporate like the whole magic is sort of science based. Like the more you know about a subject, like the better you are at that specific magic. But yeah, it definitely does not follow the prescriptions of physics throughout my books.
So, Kia, how about you? Is there anything that you've seen that just makes you cringe when you see it, either film or books?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's always movies where you're like, oh well, they didn't, weren't doing what they should there. Like there was one, oh yeah, like the Transformers movies. I think they sent like a space shuttle to the moon, and for anyone familiar with the space shuttle, it cannot go to the moon. It only goes in suborbital or orbital flight around the Earth. And so I was like, well, that's all right. They don't know, and most of the people watching this also don't know that the shuttle can't go to the moon. So you give it a pass. But although one movie I saw that like surprised me was this like really bad horror movie. I think it was called Europa Report. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it was. I saw it years ago, and I was like, man, this is like a bad horror movie, but they like did a really good job with the science. Like it was so strange that it was intended to be a horror movie, but they had all of these little details in the plot that I was like, they clearly had a scientist like on helping to write this, even though it was not a great horror movie. It was actually had a lot of good science in it. I was surprised.
Ryan, how about you? Anything good or bad that sticks out?
I don't know if it's good, but one of my favorites is Event Horizon, which is, I think it's about 25-ish years old. And there's a scene early where Sam Neill, I forget his character's name, but he does this thing where, the closest line between 2 points is a point, and he like shoves a piece of a pencil through it like a newspaper. And I thought that was cool because you really get down to some of the geometry and whatnot. That does make sense. But I mean, it turns into basically a Warhammer 40K prequel at the end. It's a horror movie. So, but I do like that part in the beginning where they're explaining the FTL stuff.
So we had a couple questions here.
Let's start with the FTL.
We can start with FTL. What's the most or least objectionable to you? How about, I don't know about most plausible, because I don't know that you'd probably win the Nobel if you could tell us that. But so what's the least objectionable to you for faster than light travel? Or do you just say magic and go on with it?
That's right.
Yeah, humans can't survive faster than light travel.
at the Air Force Academy, we called it Astro Black Magic, when the teachers were trying to like derivate, get from one equation to the next, and they were just write black magic up on the board. Yeah, I think that generally works the best.
Yeah, if there's FTL in any story that I'm reading or watching, then I kind of like let it go, because like I don't really know that there is a theory that I think is likely to be realistic. So I just it's one of the things you just accept for the premise to work.
Right. I mean, someone could probably write it like in terms of like if people aren't traveling faster than light, maybe you have something made of light, like a different species or something made of light, then they could travel, at light speed. I don't know if that exists. I just kind of made that up, but.
Sorry, real fast. One of my favorite book series is Revelation Space, and in that series, there's no FTL, but there's time differences where you have ships going close to the speed of light, and then you have people living on a planet, and you see that relativity difference where years and years have passed for that person on a planet, wherein the guys and gals in the ship, it's just a few weeks. I thought that's pretty cool.
Revelation Space is great. I think the author was a physicist, and so that's reflected.
He's an astronomer, PhD guy. We used to work for the ESA.
Makes sense. It was all solid science.
So, what are our thoughts on wormholes? What are they even, other than a plot device?
It's a mathematical thing, right? It's a way to try to explain, I think if I remember correctly, it's kind of like dark matter. The physicists don't know what certain things are, so they just put constants or equations out there to have things make sense. I think wormholes kind of fall into that category where it's theoretically possible and it makes some math make more sense, but in reality, it's probably not a real thing.
Although dark matter is indirectly observable, but we just call it dark matter because we don't know what it is. So dark matter is something, and what that thing is, we don't know, which is why it's called dark matter. But wormholes is more like theoretically could potentially exist, maybe.
Yeah, that brings me. I have a funny story. I guess I was in like 8th grade, and I was reading A Wrinkle in Time, which is like they have wormholes in the book. It's like a young adult sort of science fiction book. But I was trying to explain wormholes to my class as an 8th grader, and I took a piece of paper and was like, well, it's kind of like, time and space. I'm like putting these two objects in space together at the same time. And then like I stuck a pencil through there and I was like, this is how people travel through wormholes. And that was my 8th grade mind's way of explaining wormholes to my class.
And there's probably not a better way.
Actually, to backtrack on the faster than light travel thing, that is one theoretical way that I would accept in a book for faster than light travel, is going through a wormhole to a different location where you would have had to travel faster than light to conventionally get between those 2 points. If you had a wormhole between those 2 points, then I accept that as FTL.
But if you're traveling at that kind of speed and people are aging differently, then it's impossible to tell a coherent story, because all the people who you left would be dead at any point you tried to come back. And
that's Revelation Space, man. It deals with all that, where there's a character in the first book whose husband doesn't make it through the hibernation sleep process, or he hasn't got a ship. I forgot. It's been so many years since I read it, and she's never going to see him again.
Yeah, I have actually I touch on that a little bit in that blue book, Stars Calling. There's a point where I don't want to spoil too much, but there's essentially like a portal that some of the characters get stuck in, and it's like a side plot happening in the background. And then when they, finally solve sort of the mystery behind it, they come back, and the people that were in the portal were just much younger than, everyone else. The time had passed so much more quickly.
And that's actually, I think, a major plot point in the Ender's Game sequel.
Yeah.
Is it Eater of the Dead? Was that what it was called? Speaker for the Dead? Where they travel at different speeds in order to basically kind of skip into the future effectively, because they're aging much slower when they're traveling much faster.
Right. And wasn't that in Gravity too, or somewhere? Was that the movie where they sent someone down to a planet and they're like, no, you have to do your job very quickly or else.
It was Interstellar.
Interstellar, yeah.
That's what it was. Yes. Yeah.
So I had a question to ask you on it. It just vanished. Um, so Ryan, Teresa contacted me earlier this week. Was like, hey, are you going to send out links for the show? And I was like, oh my God, Teresa, I sent out to everybody but you. Here you go. And it turns out I didn't send you either. So everyone else got to tell us about their books. So tell us about your books. Do you have a new one coming out? I saw.
Do. So the first one, The Martian Incident, which is one I sent you guys before I came on the show the first time. That was originally supposed to be a prequel to this book, but things have diverged a lot by then. Martian Incident, if you guys know Sphere, I love Sphere, but the last third of it, not exact. I would have done things differently. So the people who own the spaceship or the artifact, however you want to look at it, they come back for it and set on Mars in about 60 years in the future. Lag Delay is a very Preston and Child-esque techno thriller set in the aerospace industry, the space industry. There's stand-ins for SpaceX and ULA and all that. It's set about 5 minutes in the future. It's about a NASA mission that's controlled by about sending these humanoid robots to Venus that's controlled by virtual reality consoles on Earth. And the mission goes haywire, gets pulled into a black budget type military program, and pretty standard thriller after that. My new one, kind of tell people it's The Expanse meets The Bourne Identity. It's a conspiracy thriller set about 180 years in the future, where the main character is a former starfighter pilot. He's turned intelligence operative, and he has to take down the conspiracy that originated with the lost continent of Atlantis. And it's basically me throwing, all my years of watching Stargate SG-1 and reading Robert Ludlum and Tom Clancy thrillers and more recent stuff like Expanse, just throwing it all in the blender, and it's going to be awesome. I'm very, very excited for it.
So, and the biggest flex I think we've had on this channel, what were you waiting on before you could publish this book?
Yeah, so I had to go through the Pentagon clearance process. If you've ever had a security clearance, anything that might have Pentagon equities has to go through a pre-publication security review, where they will go and reach out to all the different special programs you've been read into at different times, and they'll make sure that you aren't disclosing classified information. My first book, no changes. My second book, I had a 30-page PDF sent back from the Pentagon with specific things they wanted me to change because I was too close to things that they were concerned about. And then this book, there was one change they wanted me to make, and it has to do with the name is unclassified, but it's a top secret computer network that I put in for realism's sake, and they wanted me to change the name of it. So just one change for this one.
So I have a question for you, because I'm actually writing a novella series now where you use a wormhole to go to a space station at Proxima Centauri. And it's set, a year or so in the future, and I was going to use Space Command, and then I asked Roy, I was like, can I use Space Command Space Force? It's like, or should I just so I end up just calling it Space Command instead of Space Force.
Well, Space Command's a unified command, right? So there's different unified commands, like Northcom, Southcom, CENTCOM. Spacecom is one of those. And then there's SPOC, which is Space Operations Command, which is the Space Force organization that organizes, trains, and equips the units that are given to those combat commanders to wage either offensive or defensive operations. Okay. So it gets very complicated.
So my question for you, because I'm going to be selfish, as I always am on these shows, I have basically an alien species lands in Vegas. They take them to Area 51, and they're like, hey, we have a space station at Proxima Centauri. Do you all want to come?
If an alien species landed in Vegas, would anybody know?
My quick question, do they take a Janet flight there?
Yeah.
Right knows what I'm talking about.
So basically it's really kind of bogus, but they had set up a military base there, and the U.S. is like keeping it secret from the rest of the world because, don't want anyone else to know about this. And the colonel in charge, she has a nephew who is graduating with a PhD in anthropology, and she's like, we have to have somebody who can understand these damn things. So he gets told he has to defend, 3 months early because it's a matter of national security. And they're like, who the hell ever heard of national security for an anthropologist to get his PhD? And then he's whisked away to Groom Lake and then taken via wormhole to the space station where there's 5 alien races, and he's put in with them, like, figure these out. Tell us what they do, how they work. That's the whole premise. So, but I'm trying to, what do I call the people who are manning the space station for the U.S. with, hey, we need to come up with somebody now. What do we call these people? And I was thinking Space Force, but I was like, do I get in trouble if I like?
No,
use,
you're because you've never had a clearance or anything. You can use whatever you want.
I want to use like their logo or something, and Rose like, no, you probably can't use their
No, you
logo.
can use the
Logo,
logo,
you
but
can't.
you can use the name.
So I actually said, fine, I'm just going to call them Space Command because I didn't know that was a thing. And I made up my own logo for them. But I'm good. No, I have no clearance.
Yep.
Trust me, they would never want me to have clearance.
Chris has a question here about power sources. Sounds like real world.
Helium-3 fusion.
Fusion. Yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah, nuclear is going to be the future of fuel in space. The thing is that it just takes a really long time to get up to any good speed. So once we can increase the specific impulse, that'll be
That's a
something.
really long time.
Oh God, I'd have to like compared to like what we currently have, it would probably take like months to reach the same speed that like conventional rockets are at in space, just starting from no motion. So it's hard. It's a low specific impulse, but like a high eventual thrust. So once we get there, that'll be interesting.
I mean, the top end speed isn't going to be so great that you're going to be out there for months/years anyway.
Depends on where we're going.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh. So I'll warn you, the sequel to Haley Traveler, they're going to see all the gas giants in a spaceship, and it takes them like 4 or 5 months total round trip. So yeah.
At the end of the day, I don't think people who read science fiction really, I mean, they might question it all, but I don't think they really give a toss if the story is good, right? Because we all understand what's feasible or possible and what's not, right? So if the story is good, I mean, Star Trek, that's done pretty well, right? And, nobody cares. I mean, they even go back and forth in time. Once you start doing that, the Doctor Who and all that kind of shit.
Right.
Here's the
Yeah.
thing.
And the same with like Star Wars, with all the space flight and the fighters flying around in space like it's air.
Right. Yeah. Why do they have wings?
And there's sound too. There's sound in space.
Sound,
Come on.
yeah, sound in space.
I like how they evade lasers. It's like, wait a minute, a laser's just a bunch of photons, right? I mean, it's you can't avoid that.
Yeah, it's moving pretty quick.
George Lucas watched too many World War II movies.
Once you shoot it, it hits it. It's anyway. So if you owned a TARDIS, wouldn't you go somewhere else than England? Because I mean, every time that it doesn't matter where in time or anything, he always ends up in England. It's like, what the hell, dude? Come on. You can go literally anywhere.
Speaking of like things in sci-fi that you're not wild about, I can't do time travel.
I'm
it
not a huge fan
bothers
either.
me because it's always like either inconsistent or it creates some sort of paradox, and I'm just like, it just bothers me. It like niggles at the back of my mind that like, oh, but then why didn't they just do this? So I've never really gotten into any fiction that's like heavily reliant on time travel.
Back to the Future is not your favorite.
Well, see, that one I enjoy because it's like a fantasy. It's not even really like a sci-fi, and like the plot doesn't operate around like going forward and backward to a specific point and being able to prevent XYZ. Like it's just like a single device that's used to create the setting, basically. But so I enjoy Back to the Future, but like stuff like Doctor Who, I know that's sacrilegious, but I could never get into it.
That's it. You're fine.
I guess that kind of goes with like I love Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but it is totally not like
and that's like that's like science fantasy. It's more fantasy with like sci-fi back set, like
Yep.
I think it kind of makes it better if there's something in there like that is just like, okay, this makes it totally ridiculous. Now I don't need to worry about it. I won't lose any sleep. I can just enjoy the story.
Yeah, if it's not taking itself seriously, then like I'm on board. Like let's do whatever wild, wacky stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I think the most important part is just being consistent, right? Having your own universe and having the rules be consistent and not drastically change them to make the plot better, right? Like make
agree.
it, make the rules be consistent.
Yeah, that's true about not even just the science and everything. Just if you're making a magic system in fantasy, same thing. Everything's just got to be consistent, or else the reader's going to be confused.
And we had this question before. I don't think we addressed. Very important. What do we keep in mind when writing ships battling in space?
Space is big. It's
And
really,
calling
really
the
big.
style.
And it's three-dimensional.
Yeah. Wrath of Khan, right? Get the Z-axis.
You can go up and down.
If your ship gets shot, it doesn't just start falling. It's just going to keep going, whatever what direction it was.
It'll be a big explosion, right? With all the fire and smoke in
Yep.
space.
Yeah. Theoretically, you could have like a little explosion, like while the air is like immediately evacuating, but it would just be like a little poof, and then it's gone. It wouldn't be like a big thing.
Well, even now, with a dogfight today between two peer countries, they would
It's not a
likely
dogfight.
never see each other.
They never see each other. It's
Right,
hundreds
yeah.
of kilometers away. It's and if it's low observable versus not low observable, it's a turkey shoot, right? They're gonna just
Yeah,
take
yeah.
them.
You just
Take
you're
out as
just
many as their missiles
exploding and
can.
you don't know why.
Yep.
So yeah, in space, especially when, and I don't know why you even bother having a fighter class, but in space, they'd be time zones away, right? I mean, it's a bolt of light. I mean, what, here to the sun in 8 minutes? You know,
Similarly, like weapons in sci-fi and space battles, realistically, kinetic is like the way to go. Like if you can launch just an object going fast enough, like with any sort of precision, that you don't need lasers.
We're having this issue right now. So I'm working on Blue Ring, which is Blue Origin's mobility platform, and we're a propulsive satellite. We go to different orbits and drop things off and whatnot, right? And our first launch is funded by Jeff Bezos. It's not a commercial launch, not a military launch, and a lot of people are poo-pooing cybersecurity. I'm like, guys, we're a propulsive payload. Anything that can move around space is a weapon. It really is, because you touch a big national security satellite or commercial satellite, and you're going to do some damage with the speeds. I mean, you're going kilometers per second in orbit, and if you touch something else, you're going to have a bad day.
Yeah, you would think marbles would be a perfectly effective weapon if you could accelerate it fast enough to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brilliant People's coming back.
Yeah, and even just putting them in orbit means they are going fast enough, because if you have something going in the opposite direction, you like he said, you're hitting it like thousands of kilometers per second. And that collision, like you said, a marble will do plenty of damage. I think there's even been like concerns about this, like from like a terrorism standpoint. If someone wanted to like take down the global like satellite network, like there's no one to stop any country from just sending like a missile up there with tons of space debris, which would create more space debris, which then would create more space
You're
debris.
implying that already hasn't happened, that there's not already, giant things sitting in the geo belt that are just waiting for the flag to go up, right? I mean,
I know, right?
You know that the Air Force has shot missiles from airplanes to destroy satellites, right?
That was one of my teachers at the academy, was the program manager for that. Yeah. What was the name of it? Burnt Frost was the SM-3 shoot down. I don't remember. It was an F-15. They shot down a defunct, I think it's a weather satellite in the 80s.
Most countries are pretty good about shooting them down when they're in low Earth orbit, so the debris will just fall into the atmosphere and burn up. But not all countries have done that.
Yeah. Well, I think it was my freshman year at the academy. The Chinese did their shoot down, and that debris is also up there. And then, of course, the Americans were like, "Yeah, we're gonna do the same thing." So we did Burnt Frost, and there was an NRO bird that didn't work. And you're again the high side. Some of the videos and after studies of why that satellite didn't work are hilarious, but it didn't work, and they shot down. They said so hydrazine and all the toxic chemicals wouldn't land on land or land in someone's village somewhere. Really, it was just showing off, hey, we can do it too, right? So,
and when you're talking about sci-fi weapons, especially, you don't need to build a Death Star to destroy a planet. Go on Google and look up rods from God.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Basically, just large metal rods dropped from an enormous height that reach credible velocity and do exactly what you would expect something hitting at the ground at incredible velocity would do.
Yep, season 3 of Babylon 5, Centauri do it to the Narn, right? They got to drop all the big rocks.
Oh,
That's all they need.
You don't need a warhead or anything else, just a bunch of stuff.
so if I've learned anything tonight so far, it's that if I'm going to have a battle in space, I basically want to have somebody with a buckshot on the front of their ship and just fire that in a spray pattern.
Not a terrible strategy, honestly.
Actually, in space, the hardest thing compared to battles in like the air or at sea is targeting. Space is really big, and trying to find something against the background radiation or just other things out there, especially if you're in like a planetary system, it's hard. Radar doesn't really work at range because you got the R² term going out, R² coming back. So you're really reliant on all your passive systems like EO or IR or whatnot to detect stuff. And I mean, passive systems have less resolution than active. So yeah, targeting is an absolute pain. And yeah, there's obviously, if you're a spaceship and you're generating heat, you're going to show up. But by the time you show up on like an infrared sensor, you're probably in range to shoot your own missiles. So,
and acceleration's not like it is in the air. Like you can't do like a quick, juke to the left or right or whatever. Space is like a real battle in space would be really boring. It'd be like,
Things
or
kind of
very
floating
brief.
around.
yes,
Like
or very brief.
just
Yes.
spaceships going, poof, now they're gone,
Mhm.
like passing each other. Yeah.
So, and Chris has a question for you, Ryan, concerning security clearances.
I only use info that's publicly available. I don't put anything classified in my books. Yeah, I still have to go through a process. And really, anyone, I mean, they say anyone's ever had a clearance needs to go through it. I talk with some other, if you guys know Wargate books, I talk with a lot of their authors, and they're all vets. They've all been through clearances and whatnot. And their line is, if you've ever had top secret and you've ever been read SCI or any of the special programs, you really need to do it. If not, it's really a judgment call. If you think you're getting close, you probably need to send through Pentagon. But especially if you're writing, space fantasy or something, you're generally okay.
So if you have Jar Jar Binks piloting a spacecraft, you're good.
Probably fine, man. But if you got like a near future thriller, if you're writing next Ghost Fleet or Mongol Moon, you probably want to send that in to make sure you're not getting near something. Because the thing is, everything's compartmented, right? Like I know one little slice of it, but there's so many other slices I've never been read into, and you might be saying something out there that might be something we actually do. And for one of the things I had to change was foreign material exploitation. So I made just a side reference to a program called Constant Peg, and you can go on Wikipedia and look it up. But most of it's declassified. But they bought MiGs and Sukhois from Soviet bloc or Russian Soviet partner countries. They flew them out to the Nevada desert and they tested them. So I made a reference to Constant Peg. They're like, you can't have that. I'm like, and I actually went back with this one. I'm like, why? And they're like, because we're still doing that and you can't talk about it at all. I'm like, okay, whatever, man. So I took it was just a throwaway line. I took it out. But I'm assuming, because remember, my air breathing stuff is all on the blue side. I've never done red air breathing. So I'm assuming they're still doing foreign jet evaluation out in the desert, but I'm just not aware of it.
Yeah, you mentioned Ghost Fleet. I actually just finished reading that about 2 months ago, and that was interesting because every single thing in there actually exists, like in some way, shape, or form. Yep. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, it's a little dated now. When I read it in 2017, and it was a lot more
relevant.
Accurate, and a lot of things have either overcome by events, or it's the Chinese military has gone different directions.
Okay, you said 2017. I was like, that was only 3 years ago. Oh, no, yeah. Never mind.
I was in a class at Peterson Air Force Base, and I borrowed it from their the classes like library. I read it in one night, and I brought it back the next day. It's really Ghost Fleet's a really good book. It's kind of like the Red Storm Rising, which is the Tom Clancy World War III with the Soviets. It's kind of like an updated version of that. But the Chinese, I think it's actually set pretty close now. I think it's set in the late 2020s. But it's definitely worth a read if you're interested in that type of thing. They get a lot of stuff wrong. They're not obviously they're not touching on the blue capabilities at all. But it's a good read.
For those of us who don't know, what are the blue reads? And you said not red or
I was waiting to see how long it's going to be for
okay,
somebody else.
so if I say blue, that's U.S. or allied, like
Okay.
NATO or Five Eyes. If red is Russia, basically Russia or China or some other Iran, North Korea. So my background without getting obviously getting deals on the classified side, I have done a lot of space defense missions. I've not done any of the offensive counter space stuff, but I've done a lot of so I'm very familiar with the red counter space systems because I wanted to be defending the blue assets, but I am not very familiar with the red counter space or the blue offensive stuff. It's like a different realm, and I'm just not familiar with it.
So, Kia, what were you working on?
The Orion spacecraft for NASA's Artemis program. So I'm on like the civilian side of like sending people to the moon and stuff. So yeah.
So when do we get space stations?
We have a space station. What are you talking
No,
about?
but I mean a real space station that you can actually do shit
A
with.
real one. Ouch. Yeah. It's tough because so actually my paper in grad school was on electromagnetic shielding of space stations because the biggest problem of being in space for a long period of time is the radiation, and that's basically like the limiting factor to people operating in space.
And not just people, it's stuff too. I mean, cosmic
Yeah.
radiation is pretty awful.
It is. And so there's a lot of different theories on like how you can protect people from radiation and how you can protect your space stations. And so one of the things we were looking at was basically creating magnetic fields around the space station in order to kind of deflect any particles that come your way, or most of the particles that come your way. You can't deflect all of them. And it was a really interesting study, but the amount of materials and like the size of the magnets that you would need is just incredible. And so we have all of the physical technology to make those types of space stations today. It's not like any foreign technology is needed or future technology. It's just the scale that is the prohibiting factor. Like we would need to do, I think we calculated like 50 launches or something in order to get like a large space station that's able to rotate and create its own artificial gravity so that your bones don't lose mass and your muscles don't lose mass, and still have the large enough solenoids to deflect the radiation. Again, it would just be an incredible endeavor to make that. We could make it, we physically could make it. It just would be so expensive and take so much time.
Yeah, because I've always kind of wondered that, it seems to me that space beyond, going out into the solar system or whatever, with a ship of any reasonable size being able to carry anything, is going to have to be launched from space as opposed to being launched from Earth.
Yeah, that's like the next step of human space flight is, we'll be able to, like you said, start in space, because just like not being in the gravity well of Earth, just starting in orbit saves a ton of fuel.
Right. Well, and all of your weight, and I mean, what is it? How many pounds of fuel for a pound of cargo?
It depends. Like, are we getting out of Earth? I don't know. I have to look up that number, but yeah, it's a lot.
Okay, we have a couple questions, actually. Good questions, not why was the first moon landing fake. So what probability and fit? I hope somebody knows what that means.
I don't know what the acronym is. This is the problem in aerospace. There's so many acronyms.
And everyone's talking a different language.
And every program has their own set of acronyms.
Yeah, and a lot of electronics all depends on how rad hard they are. So things that they're built just to be more rad hard, they have more protection like built into them than others. So it just depends on the component and what kind of class part it is.
And a lot of it's also testing too, right? How much do you beat it up in a particle beam generator type thing, and what's it rated to? Because a lot of the newer stuff is coming up. Basically, it's automotive parts that they upscreen and throw up there, and you put 3 or 4 on the satellite or spacecraft because some of them are going to fail. At least that's SpaceX is doing that for years. They'll have no shielding, and they'll put 3 flight computers in triplicate, right? And they'll all be voting who's right and who's wrong, who got hit by a cosmic ray and who didn't. That's a safe mass, because if you do all that shielding, you're taking a mass penalty.
Yep. Which you can get away with a lot of the time with like satellites and non-human rated craft. When humans are on board, suddenly the factor of safety goes up significantly for all of your designs. So like you said, it gets a lot heavier, a lot more redundancies. Yeah.
I just have to say that we are at about the 40-minute mark before Elon's name got brought up. So if you're betting on the over/under, I definitely would have taken the under. But EL wants to know, when are we going to have a moon base?
Elon's not going to the moon. He's going to Mars. I don't know if I told this story last time when I was
Can
here.
he go sooner?
So I've met Elon a few times. I met him once at SpaceX, the Hawthorne, Los Angeles facility, because I was managing a SpaceX launch. I met him when I was on console for my launch. And I didn't really talk to him the first time. The second time he was there, it was me and a whole bunch of colonels, and we're talking. We just launched a rocket, and we're like, dropping our satellites off in orbits. We're talking about, he wanted to talk about like cars, like old video games and stuff. And then we were talking about Mars. And he's like, I want to go die on Mars. And we're like, wait, you want to like die? Like, no. He's like, no. I want to like die in like a bed on Mars in a Martian colony. Like that's his goal. And that's what's driving him to do all this stuff. And he thinks the moon's a waste of time. He told me this. This was 2019. He told me this. And that's what I'm hearing through, because Blue Origin has a lunar program as well. He's like, basically he's telling Jeff, you go to the moon, I'm going to Mars. So what I'm hearing right now through either SpaceX or Blue Origin Grapevine is there's a Mars window that opens next year, and they're going to send a whole bunch of supplies. They're going to launch like 8 starships. They're going to send supplies. They're going to send some of those stupid Tesla robots, and they're going to try to land them on Mars. And then the next window, I think, is 2028, and that's when he wants to send people. Whether to make that or not is a different story, but that's what he's telling his employees, some of which are my friends, and he's telling people who filter stuff down to me. So
I have very conflicted feelings about Elon, but he is right that if you want to go to Mars, the moon is not the stopgap that you need. You should just go directly to Mars. It's because they're not very comparable habitats at all. And there's a lot of aerospace engineers out there making the case for Mars over the moon. And so he's not the only one that's saying that.
Yeah. My take is for human habitation, Mars, if you want to go long-term human presence, Mars is probably better. But commercially, there's so much stuff on the moon, man. And there's a lot of venture capital money that's sitting around waiting for someone to figure out how to get stuff to the, not necessarily people, but like robots to the moon for either like manufacturing or mining or getting helium-3, Mike. There's a lot of things you can do with the moon, but long-term human presence is probably a little weaker of a case than Mars.
That said, NASA is going to the moon, so at least the current program, Artemis program's going to the moon. A lot of more commercial programs are looking at Mars. But the question I think originally was, when is there going to be a moon base? Is NASA, so everything gets delayed. But the next mission is humans are going to the moon about this time next year. They're just going to do a figure 8. They're not going to land. The mission after that, Artemis 3, humans will be landing on the moon. And the goal of the whole Artemis program is to establish a moon base. Although currently the plan is an orbital moon base, not a surface moon base. So
that plan's probably gone by the end of this year. And they're probably going to be a base on the moon as opposed to the Lunar Gateway.
Yeah. Another thing about NASA is that their goal is entirely dependent on what the president wants. So potentially the direction of NASA can change every 4 years. So anytime a new president takes office, the plan could change. So we'll see.
So my boss is a former space station mission controller, my direct supervisor, and she now works for Blue doing satellite stuff. And she more or less has told me that Lunar Gateway's gone. Just it's a matter of if, not when, or
Oh,
sorry,
boy.
when, not if.
Yeah, I wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, the low gravity stuff is insane. There's a, I mean, they haven't come mess because I work in a little satellite office in DC area, but the other Blue Origin offices, they've been talking with people who want to set up like fabs and both medical manufacturing as well as like chemical component manufacturing on either the moon or either. We at one point were building a space station, but there's a lot of advantages doing it in a low or no or minimal gravity environment. So yeah, that's the manufacturing stuff. It's coming.
So what chemicals are you going to make in space that is going to be, financially makes sense? Because this is whenever I hear that, I'm a chemist. I'm like, what are you going to do?
So I don't know about the chemistry, the material side, but I can definitely tell you that there's medicine that is easier to produce in less gravity, and I don't know what it is, but Jeff is having these medical companies, and they come walk through like a Blue Origin facility. I'll be in a meeting and they'll be like, yeah, there's a bunch of these venture capitalist type people walking through again, and they're all from these Silicon Valley type startups who have plans. And mind you, it could be all Theranos, right? The Elizabeth Holmes stuff. It could be all a scam, but there are companies that want lower gravity than Earth to produce things.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a huge background in like material science and chemistry and stuff, but I do know that like crystalline formations are a lot easier to form in microgravity than on the Earth. And so there's applications for medicine and material science that people are really interested in exploring. But since right now, like the International Space Station is your only way to get an experiment up there and to run an experiment, and since everyone wants to run an experiment on the International Space Station, like it's just hard and you don't have very much time. So a lot of people want more access to space just to do these experiments and see what's viable.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially if you're talking inorganic and crystal growth. Fine. I mean, if you're talking organic chemistry, I'm just going to laugh at you. But that's just me. I could be totally wrong. It won't bother me to make grandiose declarations anyway. And I do want to go back. EL asked, and we have been remiss. No one showed their covers. Well, Teresa has them behind her, but do you have your book covers here? Because EL will be pointing at us if we don't.
EL follows me on Twitter. He can see. I just put my new cover up. He can see it. I don't have anything handy.
Okay. So Glass Cannon. We just talked about that a couple weeks ago, and Teresa's been on.
So,
do you want me to talk? No.
I got Mike. Another thing that we want to do in space that not manufacturing is data centers. What's the biggest environmental impact of data centers is the water for cooling, and space is very, very cold. And Blue Ring. So we sent one it's the first New Glenn launch. We sent one prototype, and it was very basic. It was a Sputnik. It was our avionics package, not much else. The second one, we're going to put a second flight computer type. So we have our main flight computer, and then we're going to have a second one that's more a little more advanced, and we're going to put a GPU. I don't even know what it is. That's not my wheelhouse. But basically, we're going to put a LLM in space, and we're going to do some AI stuff from this second prototype. It's going to launch as a secondary payload on a GPS mission. It's going to hopefully go up later this year. So long term, there's a lot of people in my company looking at basically, Amazon made a lot of money on data centers, right? AWS. Can we put some of those in space to help either with, AI stuff, or just, hey, can we offload all that processing to a really big space station that's basically a data center in orbit?
So since I have you all here and you're eyeballs deep in technology, I want to ask what you think about AI. But before you answer, I put this tweet out yesterday. I asked Grok who Mike Molman, the author, is. And I found out that I am involved with D&D, specifically in the Teeth of the World campaign. And the sequel to Becoming a Druid is Wardens of a Broken Planet, which is something I've never heard of before in my life. So I am not too worried about AI currently, and I
Time
don't.
Traveler came back and posted that. Now you have to make that the name of your next book.
Well, the next book has been published already. Book 2 has been out for a while.
Oh, you think so?
So AI, is it? Do you all use? Is that used in aerospace, or do you trust it, or?
Oh man,
So, oh,
so I work on the software side, on the ground system side, and we have a program called Blue GPT, which is basically it's our own LLM, but it's within our confines, and everyone uses it, including me, for generating code. Don't know if we
yeah,
should
so
be
you
or
can
not.
generate like code and stuff
Oh,
with
yeah.
it, but the hard part is when you try to put it on the space vehicle, especially with like deep reference learning or something like that. Like you need a lot of memory space to like hold the brain, like the neural like connections that you make with that deep reference learning on Earth. You still need to be able to store that brain in space, and that like that's hard with all the mass penalties and stuff that you have to take. So there's a lot of that's why space always seems to be a little bit behind in technology, because you are limited by what you can shoot up there on your rocket. But yeah, designing things on the ground, like I also do a lot of work in software. I mean, you can take advantage of all the AI stuff on the ground that you want.
So this is my brother, by the way, Dan M. Is AI a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think it's either. I think it is a tool that can be used for good or bad. But it is a neutral concept.
Like any other tool, right?
Yeah. And I've seen it used for both, I've seen it in writing because we're all authors, it can be used to mass produce low content books and try to flood, indie authors out of the industry. And obviously that's not great, but it can be used for good things too. So I don't know. It's not black and white. Any other opinions? That's just my take.
You hit the nail on the head. That's how I feel too. You can use it to make your job easier, but then you can also use it to like ruin somebody else's life. So it's all who's wielding it and what they're doing with it. It's a very powerful tool that I think should be, forwarded, but yeah, figuring out how to use that tool is hard.
Generally, things can't be good or bad. It's human intent, and how we're going to use something and to what ends that is categorically good or evil,
So
sounds like something we should write a book about.
I bet no one's seen that one before.
No.
Oh, so Ryan, you're in Spacebo this year or not?
Was I?
Uh,
I don't remember.
okay. Yeah, that was kind of a disaster. So we're moving on.
I have a lot of opinions on that, and I don't think there's any good actors on either side of that whole thing.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yep. I did not make a big deal about it, but I did ask them, like, I'm not interested. Just, I don't know. I think it was before. I don't know if they cut me or not. I'm like, just please don't select me for next round, because I'm not going to make a big deal about it. I'm not going to make myself a martyr, and I also don't agree with what you're doing. So, yeah. Putting a code of conduct about 2 months, what was it, about 4 months in the competition, that's a new one for me.
Everyone must conform to this code of conduct that you signed up for this 4 months earlier, and now it is. Yeah. They actually cut me the day when all that was going on, and I was like, if I tell them, please take my book out, I'm like, that's just performative at that point. I'm like, I'm not interested in that.
I did the same exact thing.
Oh, J4 bringing us back.
You can New Shepard can get you up to space and get you astronaut wings. I think it's a couple 100,000. They'll take you up.
Do they have frequent flyer miles?
They do not. Although we have some people who are launching for the second time. It's a space tourism thing, right? Like you're only up there for like, I don't know how many minutes or whatever. But
Well, for those, for anyone who's listening who's in a grad school or undergrad, you can write a proposal to NASA to fly on their C9 microgravity airplanes, and I actually did that when I was in college. But they fly parabolas over
That's
the.
a vomit comet, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's the
the
vomit.
vomit
I hated
comet.
when you call it that, but that is what it's called, the vomit comet. But yeah, you can write a paper, and if they accept your experiment, you can fly in a microgravity airplane. They did it I think it was like 30 parabolas, and you're there for you get 30 seconds of microgravity each time. So it's an experience.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
That sounds like just something that's a hard pass.
Well, I was part of the experiment, and so they give you these meds before you get on the plane, right? Because it's a very, much worse than a roller coaster experience. And they say 3 out of the 10 people still throw up, and I was one of the 3. So yeah,
Oh, no.
it was fantastic.
I was stationed upstate New York, and they asked me once, said, "Do you want to take a ride on an airplane?" And a B-52. And I was like, "What did I do to you?" Spend 8 hours on that thing, having the hell shaken out of me and throwing up and that. No, thank you.
Do they have a coffee maker in that?
Yeah, right. They got a bathroom at least,
Yeah, I know the KC-135s have coffee makers.
Yeah, those are great. Oh, best sleep I've ever had in the back of a 135. Those things. Have you been on one of those, right?
No.
You lay down in the back. They got the where the boom is. You got 2 little compartments where they take the photos and everything. You just get a little pad back there, and you lay down, watch the world go by. Oh, it's fantastic. That's what Delta should do. Have those.
So, I thought I was kind of a rebel because I went parachuting.
Can you wave? What's broken? I might have to bounce a couple minutes early.
Okay. No worries.
That's fine.
Understood.
She's not going to want you.
Oh, it's just Mike. It'll be okay.
It's not you guys.
No, I think it's Mike. You scared her, Mike. Jesus.
No, we went a whole hour without any of my little friends coming down. I have 4, so that's the lowest one.
Wow.
Oh, the most important question before you go, Ryan, is what exactly is glow dancing?
Oh, so it's like the kids' elementary school. The gym is real dark, and they have the kids can all wear like glow sticks, like glow bracelets and stuff, and they dance. So I was there right before this, but
that's exactly what I wanted it to be. I'm so excited.
The only thing you have to get right with that is you have to time when you take the edibles so they can get just the right time.
For the elementary school
do that stuff. Nah, so I might be okay. I'm trying to figure out if I am generally not I am my 6-year-old's favorite person. I'm not that one who just showed up. I'm not her favorite person. Generally, sometimes I am. So I'm trying to figure out if I'm her favorite person at the moment. I have to go save the world for her. If she's okay with my wife taking her, and I don't have to go. But sounds like it got a little quiet.
Well, before the authors go, though, I saw someone ask how scientifically accurate are your guys' books. I know mine are like science fantasy, so I would say it's very borderline. It's more like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But what are your guys'?
My books are just straight up fantasy, so not scientifically accurate, but I get enough science during the day. But my short stories are typically very, very scientifically accurate because that's as much as I can write of hard science at a time without exhausting myself. So, yeah.
I would say my sci-fi is like a 7 or 8. Like I have wormholes, but everything else is very much your radio transmissions are limited by speed of light, and generally pretty realistic. But my techno thriller, which is the one Lag Delay, and I'm working on a sequel which is set mostly on a nuclear submarine. Those are like 10 out of 10. Science is all right. Lag Delay is the first 2/3 of it is set in Los Angeles, and I never lived there, but I used to go out there every other week to go work at either SpaceX or the base, and there's a car chase, and you can travel the car chase through the streets of LA, and it's accurate because I used to drive them all the time. So those are 10 out of 10, but my sci-fi probably like a 7 or 8.
So on your nuclear subs, then there's lots of space everywhere, and everyone has,
No. Everything smells like. I talked to some submariners. Actually, the guy who recruited me to Blue Orchid is a former enlisted electrician on submarines. Everything smells like oil. There's no space, and the toilets back up more often than you like. So it's not a fun place.
My brother.
So have you thought, Ryan, if you have a car chase that you can do that with, is going in and video mapping through like Street View, and then putting a QR code to it so people can hit the QR code and then watch through Street View?
I would hope my writing's good enough, right? That you don't have to worry about that. You can see it. But no, I'm not that kind of. I'm very terse, not purple prose. But if you pull up the lag delay and you go through Google Maps, the Airing, which is totally not Boeing facility, yeah, that's the Boeing Special Projects building, just off the Imperial Highway in El Segundo. They drive by the big drive by LAX and the big oil. On the beach in Los Angeles is a giant like oil refinery, and no one ever thinks about that, but you drive right by that. I have the Manhattan Beach Pier. They go on the 405 out to Barstow. I have all that stuff. So if you read lag delay, you can follow along with everything on Google Maps, and it's accurate. And then of course the third act's set in Cape Canaveral, which I have spent I don't even know how many months of my life out the Cape, and that's all accurate too. I set the climax is set in a high bay that was abandoned. It was used for Air Force program that was defunct, and I set the climax there. And yeah, it's all, you can go Google Maps and accurate. So that's all turned up to 11.
Okay, so Chris has had a different experience on a
sub.
Yeah. And then my brother wants to know, what's the most unforgivable event in writing?
Event? I don't know if I understand the question.
More than 500 pages if you're Mike.
Clearly. I mean, that's unforgivable. What's the worst thing that you saw that purported to be scientifically accurate that was not, or a book, movie, TV show, something just like, oh my God, people are getting.
Well, I don't know if this is the worst, but I went to see the movie Gravity when I was in undergrad, and our teachers were a couple of ex-astronauts, and so that was probably the most fun movie experience I've had, was sitting in the theater and watching Gravity, and them just being like laughing at stuff, like or oh, actually that part's accurate, but yeah, there's a lot of it's funny because that one has a mix of accurate things and inaccurate things, which is strange, but like the part where George Clooney like flies to the end of the line and they're like, we're gonna have to cut you, and it's like, really, if you hit the end of the line in space, you just like bounce back now and you're gonna like slowly glide back. You're not like, oh, I gotta like to save myself or save my buddy, you gotta like cut like there's no force pulling you back. You're both just floating there. So I remember that one, and I remember my teachers laughing about that.
Anything else particularly heinous that you've seen?
It's not space related, but Top Gun aerial combat, both the new one and the old one, are just totally inaccurate. Like could not be further from how. I mean,
that's what a B2 is for, right? You have to get it in this little thing. Well, you put a freaking a JDAM on a B2 and you fly over and you drop it right down and you're freaking done. Right? God, that movie was painful to watch. My wife kept tapping me. It's like, it's supposed to be fun.
Flying wings are broadband stealth, right? I mean, that's the beauty of them. You can't with the smaller fighters and like F-22, F-117, you can get a real low frequency radar, and you can't get a missile lock on it, but you can figure out that something is there. You can't even do that with the B2. The B2 is friggin' all radar bands, just very, very stealthy. So yeah, that's the right solution.
I don't have any that come straight off my head. Usually when I read books or write or watch movies, I kind of just suspend reality for that moment.
I can't. It bugs the hell out of me.
My wife won't watch movies with me anymore. She just
Yep.
Watch it by yourself because I'm like that's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. Either historical stuff or anything that involves. I'm not actually not that bad about sci-fi, but anything that involves the military, I just I die either usually of laughter because it's all wrong.
Especially like even if you go back to like Strategic Air Command or something like a really old movie like that, they show these dudes running through the B-52. It's like no, that's not.
Black
That's not how that works.
Black Hawk Down is probably the one movie I'd say is fairly accurate. Other than you in the command centers, the guys are watching that video feed, and that was not realistic from 1993. Other than that, I think Black Hawk Down is probably one of the more accurate ones.
So, Ryan, when is your book coming out? The European Deception?
European Deception. It's coming out in May.
Totally missed that.
Yeah, I was not. So normally the Pentagon takes 3 months to over a year to look at my stuff, and they got it back in 29 days. So
Wow.
I was a little surprised. So I'm still figuring my life out with writing because
you got a following there. Basically, it's somebody who's read one of your books before and likes it. And when the next one came up, they said, "Oh, gimme."
I was thinking, or they flagged something. Oh man, we're gonna take a look at this one.
No, or the fact that I got in with like I won't say I'm friends with, but I talk occasionally with some of the Wargate authors, and they're other than Jason Onspach, they're all vets, and they have basically an in with that Pentagon pre-publication office because they put all their books through it. I am now wondering if one of them, if there was some conversation in the background that I'm not aware of, but yeah, I am very excited. So I actually wrote a whole like 4-page essay goes to the end of it. This is the book I've been trying to write since I was like 15 years old, and I wasn't able to get the first draft done until like, holy crap, like 3 years ago, and then I've been editing it and rewriting it ever since then, and like just super pumped. I'm a big Robert Ludlum guy. I don't know if any of you guys have read his stuff, but The Bourne Identity and Osterman Weekend and all that, big conspiracy thriller, espionage, lots of twists and turns. And it's that, but in a fairly hard sci-fi environment, and I'm very happy with how it turned out.
And is there going to be an audiobook?
We'll see. There's going to be a sequel though. I'm about 4,000 words into that, but actually there's going to be a lot of sequels. But no, so that's the thing. I'm not an audiobook guy. My wife is. I don't listen to audiobooks. So until it's financially viable, I'm not willing to go and it's kind of like a vanity project, right? Unless you're making lots of money in your book or you really like audiobooks, it's not a financially smart decision, but we'll see. I was in a sale this month and I sold like 100 or I think almost 200 books in like a week. So
oh yeah, the base books. So, yeah, I was in that.
Yeah, that was crazy. I've never seen my my KDP reports look like that. It was just nuts.
What sale was this?
The base book sale.
I'll send you a link because they do it quarterly.
Okay.
Yeah, send me a link too, please.
Yeah, it was. So so my first book came out December 2023. My second book came out March 2024, and I sold maybe 150 books. Or sorry. I sold about 200 books before the base book sale, and then I sold 200 books during the base book sale. Obviously, they reduced price, but still, it was like, what was going on here? I mean, it was just absolutely nuts.
Was this the first time you were in that base book sale?
It was. It was the second sale I've ever done. I did the Narrative sale last spring and sold about 30 books there. But then, yeah, this is only the second time I've ever really done a sale, and it was just nuts. And the other big thing is reviews. I'm getting a lot more. The reviews and ratings are trickling in, and mostly positive, right? So, like, I don't know why I didn't do it last year, but yeah, it was awesome.
I did it last year for the Christmas, and I had nearly the number you did. I got like 60 or 70 books, enough that I would top 10 of people. And So the first year you're in it, they put you. You're like, these are new releases, and if after that slog, there's like 300
Yeah.
books. So
Yep.
if you went to the link, I was like 3/4 of the way down. And so how many people are going to slog through all that to get to mine? But your first time, yeah, you should do some wonderful numbers. Like your numbers are still crazy for even the first time, but yeah, the next time will not be anywhere near as good.
Understood.
Yeah, it's free, totally free, and you will get say 100 books out there that and people will read, and you'll get it's absolutely free. Definitely want to do it. I will send it to Kia and Teresa. I'll send it to both of you.
Sounds great.
And Narratest, I like Narratest too. It's free. I actually managed to miss it both times last year because I remembered too late to do it. But
That's a great sale. Teresa's good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
you send me a link to that one too.
I will do that. And Dan is just not giving up yet. This is one that my brothers and I have talked about before, and they both tell me that it absolutely will happen. They just haven't done it yet, and I tell them they're stupid. So you know what I do about this, so please weigh in.
If you can get rid of mass, I mean,
Or you can change the speed of light. Go for it.
I mean, yeah, basically those are the answers. With our current understanding of physics, it doesn't seem likely to be possible. We could develop a different understanding of physics in the future, and we could all be wrong about that, but with our current understanding, probably not.
Thank you. Tell them they're all stupid now next time I see them. And look at Roe actually being on top of things.
Look at that.
Johnny on the spot, man.
So Tuesday we have Caden Love, who has the weirdest titles ever for a book.
Tuesday. It's March 25th.
It's February 25th.
Okay.
Yep, Johnny on the spot. That's it. I'm a month ahead.
His first book was Vineyard, and the second book is A Duet of Pernicious Eels. So, yeah.
I love those titles, for the record. That's fantastic.
So he will be on. He looks like he's 16 years old. He's not. He's in his late 20s, but yeah, he's always a lot of fun. So we will talk to him Tuesday.
Oh, you will talk to him.
Yeah,
oh, and since you gave us the heads up about those sales, the one sale that I found that was really good, if you're willing to give your book away for free, was the science fiction and fantasy sale. You have to join like a Facebook group, and then like they send out like on the solstice and on the equinox, they will send out a form to fill out to be on it. But I put my Trina Heatherfield book on there, and I gave away over 1,000 books in less than 24 hours. So I mean, it made $0, but got it out there, and that was the highest. I hit #1 on Kindle, which was amazing for me. But I mean, obviously $0, but I mean, it worked real well for me. But you have to join the Facebook group, and then they'll let you know if they're doing it.
Okay. And Kia, how about you? You're doing different. You're on Royal Road, I know. So
I mean, I just published my first book last month, so I haven't done like any sales promos or anything like that yet. But I'm going to do my first one next month when I publish book 2. I'm going to be putting book 1 on sale and pointing a bunch of promos to book 1 while book 2 is releasing. So we'll see if that works. But I don't have any insight into that, so I'm just taking notes from what you guys say.
But if you want to sell your book a chapter at a time on Royal Road, Kia is a person to talk to at least get started, and then she can point you to other people as well. I'm fascinated by this, that people pay to read a chapter because you make a whole lot more money that way.
Yeah, it's good. It's serialization. So basically, like, I post it for free on one website, and then I put advanced chapters on the Patreon. So if they like get caught up on the free stuff and it's like a cliffhanger, some people will go and pay extra money to read what's ahead on the Patreon. So.
But yeah, Ryan, I think that'd just be a nightmare for you trying to get the Pentagon to approve each chapter.
Well, so it's funny. So I actually, because of my other books, I'm on like a first name basis with these guys, and I'm working on I want to say it's set back I'm going to show my age a little bit. Set during the surge in Iraq, but it's not set in Iraq. It's set in my hometown in Pennsylvania. It's It's like a historical contemporary fantasy. And I asked them if they want me to send that, and they're like, no. So something like that I could probably make work, or if I ever touch like epic fantasy or anything. But so they're only interested in if there's DoD equities, and I'm like, well, the main character is a army guy. Like, we don't. That's fancy. We don't care. So. Maybe it's something like that I could pull off, but definitely not my sci-fi, or especially anything that's close to modern day. I've been read into more special programs and tickets and whatnot than I probably forgotten more than I remember. And it's just one of those, like, better safe than sorry, send it in regardless. If they think there's any equities, I have to do that. So.
Ryan, I got a quick question for you. Like, these guys that read it, is that like their primary job?
So they don't read it. So this is they run it. They have a whole bunch of programs that run through, and based off what you've been read into, and they know, right? There's a thing called Scattered Castles, which is all the IC programs. There's a similar one for all DoD SAPs, and they run it through these different filters, and they actually take a while because they're older. It's like AI, but it's not AI. It's older stuff. And yes, that's their full-time job. But they run through all these filters, and they figure out, based on what you've been read into, can you leave this in, or can you be based off what your background is? Should we be taking that out?
So it's kind of like they're doing like a word search thing first for terms, and then deciding.
Incredibly complicated.
Yeah.
So right. I was on Bearded Book Beast last week. And I was talking about this. The book you want to read if you want to know what costs the government like tens of billions of dollars is called Wizards of Langley. And it was recommended to me when I was working at an intelligence agency, and I'm like, there's no way there's anything classified in it. And the whole book is just like classified program to classified program. And the guy was never read in. He just talked to people and he put all the pieces together. But if you want to read something that should have gone through and didn't, it's called Wizards of Langley. It's about the CIA Science and Technology Division.
Wow. So Teresa, what are you working on currently?
I'm currently working on so all of the other books that I've written are mainly young adult fantasy kind of books. So I'm working on my first young adult science fantasy book. It's kind of based on, so I went to a trip to the Netherlands, and the windmills there were pretty fascinating, and we kind of did like a tour. So the main character in the book runs a wind catcher, but on a different planet. And instead of, using air to like, spin water and make electricity or whatever, they actually are catching different air molecules. So this is science fantasy, right? So like when the wind blows one way, a different type of air blows in, and you have to collect it. And then they kind of send that out to like the different races that use kind of air, because not everybody breathes oxygen. Some people breathe like nitrogen or something like that. So it's kind of based around that, and I don't know if that's what I'm working on. Not very far into it.
And Kia, Glass Cannon is out, correct? And your second book is
Loose Cannon, and that's next month.
Nice. And are you still actively posting on Royal Road chapters, or are you?
Yep. I'm posting 2 stories on Royal Road right now.
How far along are you in those? How long before they're published?
So one of them is the continuation of Glass Cannon. The whole series is going to be like 8 books probably, so I'm just still continuously publishing. I'm most of the way through the 3rd book right now on Royal Road. And then another book that I'm publishing might just be a one-off. We'll see. Like I said, I've published like 4 different series, and I'm just kind of seeing which ones are the ones that take off and people like the most, and then that's the one that I'm like focusing on. So yeah.
Okay, and we can't leave without asking Ryan, is that a Dirty Birds sweatshirt that you have?
Of course it is. I actually have a Blue Origin shirt under this. I wore out to work today, but no, I'm from Philly. I'm Phillies, Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, and I live in Commanders country, Redskins commies country, and I've been wearing Eagles stuff basically nonstop since the week of the Eagles Commanders NFC Championship game.
So are you going to talk reasonable now, or are you still just as unreasonable?
I have become. I don't think I can get any more unreasonable, and I thought that after we won in 2018, and I have an exciting Whites t-shirt and a Quinyanimo Bay sweatshirt in the mail. I'm gonna wear Eagles stuff to work. And I work with almost all Redskins commies fans, and I'm gonna just wear Eagles stuff to work for the next few years. So
But you certainly can't wear Sixers stuff.
God, we're awful, man. It's bad. And we were supposed to be good this year too. Like we got Paul George, we have Maxey, we have Embiid. We were supposed to be good. But I will say though, the fact that the Sixers are awful, we're planning. My buddies not back home and I were planning to go to a game sometime in like March or April because we're gonna be able to get like lower level tickets for maybe $20 each because they
You'd
stink.
be able to sit on the players' bench. What are you talking about?
Yeah, Flyers and Sixers stink, but Eagles won it. I'm very happy. My older two girls got to watch it with me, and like I remember watching in 2005 with my dad when we lost to the Patriots, and like just being a train wreck for the next few weeks after that. So like my girls got to watch a Super Bowl win, so that was cool.
Okay, I don't know if we can, stop the show on a better thing than Ryan is going to be unreasonable for the next several years.
I've been unreasonable since 2018, Mike. I've been unreasonable since I was born. It's just I'm a Philly sports fan. I can't help it.
So thank you everyone for being on the show. My book did not get torn to shreds, so that's a plus. And Ro didn't even mention chapter 17/18. So
Nope. I'm going to. Join us Tuesday. Join Mike Tuesday.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.